Hello, good evening, and welcome to another training series in the software business that we are all working towards. I am sure that by now you have started getting a gist of how things work. You've done your independent research and you are really getting ready towards the first software being ready. However, tonight I want to take us a little bit deeper into the software thing, and I want to explain tonight servers and server environments. And if time permits, I would go into a basic setup of databases so that we all see how databases are done and we can setting up softwares on the web server. Now, I won't want to waste too much time, so I'll just go straight into it and I start to show you things as regards servers and server environments. Now, when it comes to the softwares that we are working on, you need to understand that what we are doing are actually what we call web applications. Now, they are web applications because these softwares, they run online. These are softwares that we put on a web server, and those softwares are run from a web server. So we call them web applications. So in order for you to understand fully, let me just try to break it down by explaining the other types of softwares that you can or you have been relating with over time. Now, you have softwares that run on your PC. That's, you install them on your computer, and then each time you want to use those softwares, you go to your computer, you power up your computer, and then you run those softwares, and those softwares run. That's a class of software. You have softwares that run on your mobile phone. Those are softwares that run on mobile devices. For instance, you have your Windows phone, you have your Android phones, and you have softwares that run on iOS devices. Those are the Apple phones, iPhones, and things like that. And then you have those classes of softwares, and when you want to run them, you go to your phone to run those softwares. Now, what we are doing are softwares that run online. So you put them on a web server, on a website, so to speak. We call them web applications. So the first software we are going to be doing is actually going to be a web application because it's going to run online. And it has a certain advantage when you have applications online running from a website. One of the advantages is that you don't need to have a physical contact with your PC or your phone in order to use the application. So when you have an application on a website running as a web application, as long as your server is live, as long as your server is running, that application also runs. So it does not matter if you are there or not. You can actually have your application running 24/7 on a web server and it won't stop running. For instance, as I'm talking to you now, I have applications that are running on my web server and 7 on a web server and it won't stop running. For instance, as I'm talking to you now, I have applications that are running on my web server and I don't need to do anything else other than to set up those softwares for them to start running. Once I do the initial setup of the softwares, then the softwares will start running and they will continue to run unless I stop those softwares from running or something happens to the server. A lot of things can happen that can cause your softwares to stop running on the server. For instance, if you refuse to pay or you forget to pay your bills and your provider turns off your service, then your software goes off because your software is running on that service. Or for instance, if you have an adverse effect on your site, probably you got hacked or something like that, then it can environment tonight and I will try to explain to you what these environments are so that you can understand. And when you start having customers, you will be able to explain to your customer why you are recommending what and why you are asking them to do what. So I would try to do as much justice as I can to the issue of servers tonight. So let's get started with servers. Now, when it comes to server and server environments in the area of web applications, there are two major servers or server environments that we will focus on. Now, the first one are the Windows servers, and the second one are the Linux-based servers. So servers and the Linux-based servers. Now, when we talk about a Windows server, what do we mean? So you have the Windows, okay, and then you have Linux. All right, so we have the Windows servers and have the Linux servers. Those are the two dominant players that you see around. Now, when we talk about a Windows-based server, what are we talking about? Now, a Windows-based server is a web server that runs the Windows operating system. So on that server, what you have is Windows, just like probably you have your PC right now and your PC is running Windows. So if you have a web server that is a Windows-based server, then it means that that server is running Windows as the operating system. That is a Windows-based server, then it means that that server is running Windows as the operating system. So you can install on top of Windows and do whatever it is you want to do on top of the Windows-based environment. The second type of server is the Linux server. So when you have a Linux-based server, you can, it's a server environment also. And when it comes to the area of web, I think Linux has more dominance than the Windows. In PC, we have Windows, Apple, and all of that. But when it comes to the web, you have Linux being the major player in server environment. And then you now have what we call the Linux distros. That's, you have different Linux distributions. You have Ubuntu, you have, let me just show you, because you see, I like to show you all these things so that if you want to start or you want to carry on your own research, you can easily take it up from wherever it is I have stopped, because I can't teach you everything you need to know. I can only give you pointers as to what you need to know so that you have an introduction into things and you can easily take off from that point. Because when there's nobody to explain the basics to you, it becomes very difficult getting started. But if you have the basics, then getting started becomes easier. So, and that's what I'll be trying to do all through this training series. So let me just go over to my browser, and let me just try and get browser, and let me just try and get Linux distros. So you will see different types of Linux distros. So I'm just going to move over to the desktop screen so that you can see my, okay, I believe you should be able to see that like now. Let me see. Okay, I want to see my desktop. Okay, so I believe you can see my desktop now. So what I want to show you now are Linux distros. So I'm just going to search for Linux distros. Now that is Linux distributions. And once you search for Linux distros, you would see that there are so many types of Linux distributions, which means there are so many versions of Linux distributions, which means there are so many versions of Linux, because Linux is an open source software. Open source means that that software has been created, but anybody can use it. Anybody can pick up the software, for instance, and modify the software and create their own versions of the software, make it better, take something out of it, add to it, and all of that. So you have Linux as a software that runs on the server environment as the operating system on the server. And then you have, because Linux is open source and people are permitted to create their own versions of Linux, you have so many versions of Linux. So you have Ubuntu, you have let's look at the distros together. So you have so many versions of Linux that you can pick from. So we have this is Arch Linux, this is Ubuntu that you can pick from. So we have this is Arch Linux, this is Ubuntu, this is Fedora, this is Kubuntu, this is Deepin, and so many of them. Let me just go to best Linux distros of 2019. So on a Linux server, you have a choice of using any of all these Linux distributions. So here we have Elementary OS, you have Linux Mint, you have Arch Linux, you have Ubuntu, you have Tails, you have CentOS. Now, CentOS is the distro on top of which server environments like CPanel is based. So you have CentOS, you have, and so on and so forth. So many of Linux distros. So when you have Windows-based servers, and then you have Linux-based servers. Now, for this first software, it is going to be running on a Linux-based server. It won't be running on a Windows-based server. We are not building for a Windows-based environment. The second software is going to use a mixture of the two. The second software, which we are going to be doing next year by God's grace, is going to be split in between a Windows environment and a Linux environment. So there are certain parts of it that we're going to run on a Windows environment. There are other parts of it that we're going to run on a Linux environment. So you need to have that at the back of your mind. But for this first software, we are going to run entirely on a on a Linux environment. Now, when it comes to Linux environment, you need to pay attention that there are Linux distros on your server. If you buy a server today, that server has an operating system. All right, that operating system is either a Windows-based server or it's a Linux-based server. Now, Windows-based servers, for those of us who are very familiar with Windows, we learned computer by working on a Windows environment. We've come to we are used to the graphical user interface that Windows provides, which means you get your mouse icon, you point, you click, something opens up. You want to do this, you click, you minimize, you click, you maximize, you click to save, and all of that on a Windows environment. We are used to that. Now, when we get to the Linux environment, we tend to get lost. If you have seen the other video I sent just before this video, you discover that for most of you that. Now, when we get to the Linux environment, we tend to get lost. If you have seen the other video I sent just before this video, you discover that for most of the things that we are doing, especially when it comes to the installation of our of the software that we use in managing our server, you discover that we have to do it from the command line. So I introduced you to command line. And then for a Linux administrators, which is a very high demand skill, you have companies hire Linux administrators to work on their Linux-based servers. So for Linux administrators, you have to go into the command line and write, commands to work on your server. You want to create a directory, you have to write a command to create a directory. You want to do this, you have to write a command to, work on your directory. Now, because of that now creates Linux servers. Let me just start again so that I don't get to confuse you. So you have two types of server environments. You have the Windows-based server, and then you have the Linux-based server. All right. Now, for now, let's push the Windows-based servers aside and let's focus on the Linux-based server, because we are going to be running our software on a Linux-based server. So what happens with the Linux-based server? Linux is an operating system. Let me use that because we are all familiar with that. Linux is an operating system, is an OS that is open source. Windows is not open source. So if you want to use Windows, you have to buy a license. You have to pay for a license to use Windows. Linux, on the other hand, is open source. You don't need to pay to use it. So you can just get a copy of Linux now and install on your computer. You don't need to pay to use it. So you can just get a copy of Linux now and install on your computer and start using a Linux-based operating system on your PC. So when we get into the server world, the server environment, and don't forget, I don't know if I've explained this before, but don't forget, when we talk about servers, a server is simply a computer that is running somewhere. So you have your computer running probably in the US, or probably in Germany, or probably in South Africa, or probably wherever it is in the world. And then you are given a terminal by which you can operate your computer. So when you have your control panel login and you have your server information, your server IP address, your server password, what you are doing is that you are operating remotely on a PC somewhere. So whatever it is you can do on a regular computer, on your own computer, is the same thing you can do on your server, because your server is just like a computer. So you can, for instance, create files. I explained before that when it comes to computers, we are doing just 4 things. We are creating things, we are reading what we have created, we are updating our records, and then we are deleting our records. So for instance, your website is a load of files. So you are putting files on your website. You put your HTML files, you put your images and all of that. So when someone needs information about your website, they go to your website, and then your website reads whatever information you've saved before, and it serves that information to those that are coming to your website. So let's get back to server. Because Linux is open source, people Linux out there. Now, when you want to, after you have purchased a server, either it's Linux or Windows or whatever, you are now given the choice of installing whatever you want on top of that server. All right. So if you get Linux, it's Linux server now, one of the first things that the provider will ask you is that the provider will ask you, what type of Linux distro would you like to install on this server? So they would give you that option. So you can say, okay, what I want is CentOS. What version of CentOS do you want? Okay, I want CentOS 6. I want CentOS 7. All right. And then once you are purchasing your server, you pick, okay, give me CentOS 6 or give me CentOS, give me CentOS 6 or give me CentOS 7. And then you install that. Now, there's something you need to note at this point. Now, when it comes to softwares generally and servers, there is what we call end of life. All right. I think it's called end of life, EOL. When it comes to software, I think we call it EOL, end of life. So what does end of life mean? End of life simply means, okay, a provider has created a software and then they support that software. Supporting the software means that from time to time they make updates to the software, they make changes to the software. When they notice that there is a security issue with the software, they fix those security issues. When they see that they feel that there are things that they fix those security issues. When they see that they feel that there are things that they need to add to the software, they add it to the software. If they feel that there are things they need to remove from the software, they remove from the software. Just like we're also going to be doing, we're going to be supporting the software, we're going to be making it better, we're going to be removing things, we're going to be adding things. If we get customer feedback and we feel, okay, this is something we need to implement, we implement, and then all of that. Now, once a software has been built, especially softwares that are done on these big levels. When I say big levels, I'm talking about the Linux of this world. Because when you talk about Linux of this world, imagine the number of websites that are available, and every one of them is running on Linux. Because Linux has a very high percentage of usage when it comes to server environment. So imagine the number of websites that we have around the world, and everything is running on Linux server. And that is why web hosting is actually big business. Because when you look at, there's so many things, also look at that as a source of revenue, because once someone wants to pay for your software, that person has to install that software on a server. And then you can just tell them, okay, I want you to purchase this software from me, because either they purchase from you or not, they are still going to pay the same amount. So purchase this software using my affiliate link. Let me earn something. So you can earn between $10 and $100, $2,000. There are software hosting providers that can actually pay you as high as $150, $200 just for recommending people to them. So the software has to run on a server. Now, when you are purchasing your software, please pay attention to what we call end of life. When you are purchasing a server and then you are installing the OS, the Linux distribution that you want to use, please pay attention to the end of life of that distribution. Let me just go back to my desktop and let me show you distribution. Let me just go back to my desktop and let me show you what we mean by end of life. So for every software you want to install, there is usually, because these big guys that are into software have a very standard way of doing things. Once they release a software, they will tell you, okay, this software is going to die at so point. So they would support the software until that point. So for instance, we have CentOS 6. Let me see if I can just show you some of these things and then we can pick it up from there. So let me do CentOS. Let me do CentOS end of life. CentOS EOL end of life. All right, let me just do a search for that. And then when you look at CentOS end of life, let me see if I can just get CentOS end of life. Let me see if I can just get something I want on Wikipedia. All right, so let's go to Wikipedia and let's see end of life, history, design, releases, end of life, release date, end of life. Okay, I don't think I'm getting what I want here. Let me go back and try to see this place and let me see. Okay, good. Now, here we are. Now, when you look at CentOS, you see CentOS life cycle, that's the end of life. Now, CentOS 6 is still being used, but CentOS 6 will end its life, will terminate in 2020, November 30th, 2020. That's exactly 1 year from now. So if you purchase a server now and you install CentOS 6 on that server, please have in mind that the end of life of CentOS 6 is next year, 2020. This is November 2019. So in 1 year time, the CentOS 6 that you have installed on your server is going to end. And that's going to create a lot of problems for you, because it's not easy changing the operating system. You go for a software version that has a longer end of life. So if I'm going to ask you, for most of you who've purchased servers based on my recommendation, you would notice that I already did that research for you, and when I am giving you instructions, and sometimes that's why I get a little bit mad when I say, okay, I'm giving you instructions, go purchase CentOS 7, and then you end up purchasing CentOS 6. And I'm like, come, I gave you instructions to purchase CentOS 7. You have purchased CentOS 6. Do you really want me to work on CentOS 6? The reason why I told you to purchase CentOS 7 in the first place is because I know that CentOS 6 has a close end of life, while CentOS 7 has a longer end of life. So let me just go back to this screen and let's look a little bit more. So you have end of life for CentOS 7 is 2024. All right, so that gives you more. Ended in 2017. So CentOS 5 was released April 12, 2007, but it ended in 2017. So officially, CentOS 5 is dead. CentOS 6 will die next year. CentOS 7 will continue to run till 2024. Okay, good. So I have explained end of life to you. And now that I've explained end of life to you, I can conveniently go deeper with this server issue. So when it comes to your servers, we are doing Linux. I have to repeat so that it syncs. We are doing Linux-based servers, and Linux has several distros, and then we need to pay attention to the end of life of whatever software we are using and installing so that we don't get into problems or unnecessary problems. Now doing Linux, I have to repeat so that it syncs. We are doing Linux-based servers, and Linux has several distros, and then we need to pay attention to the end of life of whatever software we are using and installing so that we don't get into problems or unnecessary problems. Now, when you install your CentOS 7 or CentOS 6 on your server, then another problem comes up. The problem that comes up is that, I explained earlier that most of the things you do with Linux has to do with the command line. But we are not trained from the beginning to use the command line. I did a training in the last video I sent to you, and I gave you basic Linux skills, but we are not trained to use the command line. So it looks very difficult because we didn't learn to use the command line. Now, because of that, some company created a user interface around that command line. So what they are now saying in essence is, instead of you learning command line that is very difficult, come and use our software. We have now created a user interface for that command line so that you don't need to do command line. So such a company is CPanel. That's like the leading company when it comes to servers, and they've so set up themselves that they've become like the industry standard, and they make a lot of money. They make a lot of money. Forget it, hands down, they make a lot of money. If you have a website and you use CPanel, you are paying them, and you are paying them every single month. So imagine the number of people that use CPanel and paying every month. I pay CPanel every month. I pay $12 every month. So imagine the number of people that use CPanel. Just use the same calculations that we have done earlier and just try to estimate the number of people that use CPanel and are paying every month. So you have a software like CPanel. So CPanel is like the Windows of desktop when it comes to server environment. So what most people know is CPanel. So what CPanel has done is that CPanel has now created a layer around the Linux-based commands. So if you want to change your password, you don't need to go to the command line. You can do it in the CPanel interface. And CPanel has done a wonderful job at even creating more opportunities for people, because they now built their software in such a way that it works on top of the Linux server and even gives you the opportunity to do a lot of things. So you can manage your website fully using CPanel. Let's take a look at CPanel and let's see if I want to use CPanel on my Linux server fully using CPanel. Let's take a look at CPanel and let's see if I want to use CPanel on my Linux server, what will CPanel require of me? So let's just go back to the desktop and let me just do a search for CPanel. So let's dig into CPanel and let's see. Now, I'm taking you on a course on software, so I'm sure you will be finding all these things very interesting, because most of you listening to me now have just been using all these things. You did not really bother to get deep into understanding how it works and why it works that way. So here's the CPanel website. So for some people, you've never even been to this website before. So here is the thing, CPanel has their software. So when you run CPanel on your server, it is not your web hosts that owns CPanel. CPanel is owned by another company. They were very smart. They were early players. They created software that's basic, that's standard. So how does CPanel works? When you get to CPanel, the first thing you want to check out is the pricing. So let me see if I can just get the pricing quickly here. Let's see. Okay, so we have the pricing. So CPanel has two types. They have a solo type, which is a one account type, and that's $15 per month. I think they've increased. I think it used to be $12. So you have $15 per month. They have an admin type, $20 per month. They have a pro type, $30 per month. They have a premier account for $45 per month, and so many other types of licenses. They have licenses for people who are really who are web hosts, really into web hosting services and all of that. They have a lot of license types. So when you license types. So when you install CPanel, what you are doing is that you are installing like a wrapper around your Linux installation. So CPanel, once you decide you want to use CPanel will tell you the Linux distributions that they support. So let's just look down a little bit, and then you will now see that when it comes to CPanel, they are telling you, okay, if you are using CPanel with Cloud Linux, is $16 per month, and so on and so forth. So when you want to install CPanel, they will tell you that if you are going to use CPanel, let me look at the features. Let me try and see installation. Let me go back to the home page. Let me just see. Because let me go back to the home page. Let me just see. Because if you want to purchase CPanel, they will actually tell you that if you are going to use CPanel, these are the Linux distributions that we support. All right, they will tell you from the start. Where can I get CPanel? Let me see this. I'm looking for the Linux distributions that they support. Now, sorry, I just like it when we do all these things together so that you see, because you see, I'm not the owner of these softwares. I'm also a user like you. So I like it when I'm showing you and I'm making errors and we are doing it together, and then you also pick it up from there and you also want to use it from that point and all of that, and then it becomes more interesting when I do it like that, and it's easy for me, it's less stressful for me when I do it that way. So I'm trying to see the environment on which runs, but in case I can't do that, just have at the back of your mind that CPanel runs on CentOS 7. It also runs on CentOS 6. So you can just look for that later by yourself. So what CPanel has done, like I was explaining, is that CPanel has now made it easy for you to do your server administration, because you don't need to now know Linux commands. You don't need to know Linux. CPanel has now said, okay, let's give you a graphical user interface, pay us monthly, and then you pay them every month, and then you have the convenience of using CPanel to manage your Linux server. So CPanel is actually there to manage your Linux server and then to manage your website. So you are doing things like you are creating your emails on your Linux server. You are uploading and downloading on your Linux server. You are sending emails on your Linux server. You are on your Linux server in using CPanel. Now, is CPanel the only server software you can use for Linux? No, there are so many others. So you can just do a search for instance, you do a search for what we call CPanel alternative. So if we do a search for CPanel alternatives, you now see that on top of this same Linux, so there are so many alternatives to CPanel. All right, there are so many alternatives to CPanel. Well, one of the things we did first, when I did when I built the first version of our email software, was that I tried several servers. Like I said, software development costs a lot of money. You try several things, you are paying money here, paying money there, and it can be really tedious. So I tried several servers, and that was when I discovered that, oh, so it is not only CPanel that is available. There are other ones. There are other ones that also work. And I was like, wow. So here on this, by just doing a search, you can see 7 free CPanel alternatives. So these ones are even free. You don't need to even pay. So there are so many of them. And as you go on, you begin to see all these things. So you have a CPanel alternative that is called WebMain. I've not tried WebMain before, but I know WebMain exists. So you have WebMain, you have CentOS Web Panel, not the CentOS Linux distro. This is just a web panel for CentOS. So you have a CentOS web panel, it's free. You have Agenti, I think it's free. You have Host, you have Froxlaw. Not all these, of course, will still be available, but all these things are available. You have ISP. So these are environments, but all these things are available. You have ISP. So these are environments. I've tried this Vesta CP. It's also equally good, and I hope that I will have time to look into it deeply more later, and then we can remove totally the money that we pay for admin panels, because right now I think most of us use what's it called, Webuzo, and Webuzo comes at $2.05 per month. So please have in mind, if you are looking at this video, that we've done a lot of work in bringing down the cost of running a web business. I did that work. That was one of the things I did all through last year. I actually went into researching, and we were able to lower the cost of doing web business and even running our software. So we have Vesta CP, we have so many of them, so many of the softwares that are alternatives to CPanel through which you can manage your server. Now, when you go to a web host, these are some of the things that you look out for, because it's very, very important to know what you look out for, so that you're not going to buy a server that at the end of the day you cannot run your mailing application on. So when I give you recommendations of, oh, if you get this server, this is what you should get as a minimum, I'm going to now explain some of the reasons why I give those things as a minimum standard. So if you want to buy a web hosting server, now please remember, the reason why I'm going this deep and I'm taking this much time to explain is because, number one, I want you to have a basic understanding of what you are getting into, so that by the time you start getting customers, you don't just look like a dummy that is only trying to collect their money. You can explain to them, just like I sit you down and I explain to you, if you do this, this is the result. If you do this, this is what you should expect. You to your customers why they should not use a shared hosting server, for instance. You'll be able to tell them why they should use a VPN server. You'll be able to tell them why at some point in their business they should use your application on a dedicated server. So these are things that you should be able to explain to them. And that's why I'm taking time and pains to explain to you now, because when we fully start, I would have my business to run. I won't answer you if you come to me to come and start helping you to explain to your customer what kind of server they should buy. I have already explained to you, do your research and go on from there. I won't expect you now to expect me to now come and do day-to-day fix of your client server for you. No, I won't do that. I would only work on the server, on the softwares in a top level manner. So whatever issue the software has, I fix that issue on top, and I expect you to be able to now carry whatever I've done and give to your so whatever issue the software has, I fix that issue on top, and I expect you to be able to now carry whatever I've done and give to your clients. Because honestly, I think I have like close to like 20 of us, maybe 18 or 17 or thereabouts, and you can't imagine if each one of you now have 50 customers, and then you are now calling me to come and be satisfying 50 customers times 18 people. That doesn't, it can't work. So I have my own business to run, you have your own business to run, I have my own customers to support, I have my targets, I have a target for the number of softwares I want to sell next year. So you have to learn these things basic so that you can explain to you. You can't expect me to now come and talk to your customers for you, because I know some of you will try it. That's why I'm taking time to really break it down and explain. So please, if it looks as if I am repeating and I am repeating and repeating, that is just the reason why. Normally, I'm not supposed to get into all this. If you don't listen to specification, it's on you. But let me explain to you so that you know why things are done. So when you go to a web host, all right, and you say, oh, this web host, I want to buy a server, a Linux-based server. Of course, now you know you should not choose Windows when you are selecting. Always make sure you don't choose Windows. You are choosing Linux. How do you know what kind of Linux distro you should choose? Okay, let's start from there. Let's assume I'm just going to switch over to my desktop and I'll try to just show you. Let's assume that you are going to install Webuzo. So you are going to say Webuzo server requirements. So I'm just going to do Webuzo server requirements. All right. Because if you are going to run Webuzo, there is a server requirement. Let me just do CPanel server. Okay. So here is CPanel server requirement. If you are going to do CPanel, let me see. Let me just pick whatever I get. The first thing I get. So this is a requirement guideline that is provided by a hosting provider, HostWinds. And they are saying, okay, if you are going to use CPanel, these are the minimum requirements for CPanel. Minimum requirements for CPanel. The processor has to be 1 CPU core. So if you say because you want to save money, you buy something that is less than the minimum requirement, you are on your own. So for CentOS 7, the minimum requirement, because CPanel, it's better you buy CentOS 7. I've told you why you should not do CentOS 6. You should go for CentOS 7. Now, if you are doing CentOS 7, the minimum requirement, because CPanel, it's better you buy CentOS 7. I've told you why you should not do CentOS 6. You should go for CentOS 7. Now, if you are doing CentOS 7, the minimum requirement for CentOS 7 is 1 gig RAM. All right. Now, if you now go and buy the minimum of 1 gig RAM and there are issues, it's on you. So they are now recommending that at least you should have 2 gig of RAM. Okay, that you should have 2 gig of RAM. They are recommending that, okay, for CentOS 7, you should have at least 2 gig of RAM. And then they are saying, okay, disk space, you should have at least 20 gig of disk space if you are doing CPanel. So if you want to tell your customer what to buy, of course, the moment they give you a server that has less than 20 gig, recommended is 40 gig of space. So if they don't have up to 40 gigabytes of space, then you should be able to tell the customer immediately that, hey, customer, what you are going to do or what you want to attempt to do would not work. So that's how you know what to get in terms of server. So if you are looking for any server, you are looking for at least 2 gigabytes of RAM, and then you are looking for at least 4 gigabytes of disk space. And then you are looking to do CentOS 7 if you are going to run CPanel/WHM. If you are going to do Webuzo, what are we looking at? Okay, let's look at that. If you are going to do Webuzo, what are you looking at? If you are going to do Webuzo, you are going to say, okay, Webuzo can run on these Linux distributions. Okay, Webuzo is compatible with Ubuntu, long-term Ubuntu LTS, Then Webuzo is compatible with CentOS 6 and CentOS 7. Webuzo is compatible with Red Hat. That's also a distribution of Linux. Webuzo is also compatible with Scientific Linux. But as usual, I'll probably just say, let's go with CentOS 7. So if you're going to use Webuzo, you are going to go with CentOS 7. And then Webuzo will require a minimum of 5 gig of space. A minimum 5 gig of space, but recommended 10 gigabytes of space. So if you're going to do Webuzo, you have to go for a minimum of 5 gig of space. And then all these ports must be available. No ports should be blocked. All these ports should be available. 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005. These are ports that should be available and on. So if you're going to do Webuzo, you have to go for CentOS 6, CentOS 7, Ubuntu, Red Hat, or whatever. These are the Linux distributions that are available for Webuzo. And then you are doing a minimum of 1 gig of RAM, and then recommended 2 gig of RAM. So let's now go out there and try to look at servers, and let's see. So let's start our search from probably HostGator, and let's see what HostGator is offering. So if you go to hostgator.com, what is hostgator.com offering? If you want to go to hostgator.com, you are looking at, okay, what is available. Now, please let me explain this quickly. Let me just quickly explain this. When it comes to your server environment, please avoid using shared hosting. Okay, what is shared hosting? The web hosting services. The first thing you see are all these sweet looking offers. Like they tell you, powerful web hosting service starting at $2.75 per month. Now, once they give you this offer, it will work. It's not like it will not work. But when you dig deep into the terms of service, you begin to see limitations, especially as regards the sending of emails. Now, the reason why this happens is that once you get this kind of shared hosting server environment, you have a lot of people are bundled on that server. So you can have like 10,000 people using the same server environment, the same IP address. Sometimes, all of you are using shared resources. And because of that, they would limit what you can send out in terms of emails. In fact, there are some providers that if you send 100 emails at a time, they will block your service. So you have to pay attention to that. So because of that, please do not run a mailing application on a shared hosting environment. And because of that also, please don't say, I pity the person, he doesn't have money. And then you now allow someone to run their email service on your own server, because once they start sending emails, those emails will go out from your IP address, and whatever they do that affects reputation, for instance, if they send a bad email and their IP and that email affects your IP reputation, it will affect you. So it's better you ask each person to buy their own server, and please avoid a share. Once you purchase a server on a shared host, the problem will come when you start sending emails. If you get away with sending 100 emails, I am very, very sure the day you will send maybe like 500 emails in an hour, not even per minute, the day you will send 500 emails in an hour, they will block your service because it's a shared hosting environment. So the first thing you want to go for is you are either going for a VPS server or a dedicated server. So let's look at a VPS server. That's what you should always look out for first. Now, if you look at this VPS server, you will discover that all these server environments can conveniently run our application. All the server environments available here can run our application. So you have 2 gig RAM here. This is the minimum. You have 2 gig of RAM, and the recommendation is 2 gig RAM. All the server environments available here can run our application. So you have 2 gig RAM here. This is the minimum. you have 2 gig of RAM, and the recommendation is 2 gig RAM. The recommendation is 2 gig of RAM. So you have 2 gig of RAM, and then you have 2 CPU cores. This one is recommending 1 CPU core, so we have 2 CPU cores, and then you have 120 gigabytes of disk space. So straight off, you know that this will work. Now, once you now get to a provider and they are telling you, okay, you can buy 1 gig of RAM, and then you say because you want to save money, you now buy 1 gig of RAM. Of course, expect that you would run into problems as time goes on. Now, for those of you who are taking this course right now, I believe you know I have already given you a server that works very well. Like we have Contabo well on that server environment, and you won't really have much problems running on Contabo environment. So please have at the back of your mind when it comes to servers that you want to pay attention to the minimum recommendation for the server environment, and then you want to choose either the server environment that works well for you. We are looking at, for us, we are looking at CPanel, we are looking at Webuzo. Webuzo is also fine. Most of my clients now use Webuzo. CPanel, it's cost about $12 per month. So what happens is that if you are getting a VPS server, you have to add $12 per month to the cost of the VPS server. So let's see OVH. There's also a provider called OVH. I have an account with them as well. So this provider has VPS servers. They are one of the very, very good VPS providers. Please, if you want to buy a VPS server, look out for where you are buying from. Some will tell you that they are giving you a VPS server, but they are not really giving you a VPS server. So look out for where you are buying from, so that you buy from a place where once you start sending emails, you won't have problems. Because the kind of server you have and the kind of limits that your web hosting provider is exerting on your server will determine how fast or how much emails you can send. So let's assume that you have a business that has like 100,000 subscribers. If you have 100,000 subscribers and you want to send 2 emails in a day, it means you want to send 200,000 emails. Now, if your provider tells you that you can only send 100 emails per hour, 100 emails per hour, then it means that there's 24 hours in a day. Then it means in a 24-hour period, 24 times 100, you can only send 2,400 emails in a 24-hour period. Multiply 24, or let's say you divide 200,000 emails that you want to send by 2,400, then it means it will take you 83 days to send 200,000 emails. That's the meaning. So if you want to get your server, make sure you go for a provider where you truly have a VPS server and you are not restricted, because that's the whole idea of having a VPS and a dedicated server. On a dedicated server, if you like melt down your server, it's your problem. So if you are sending 200,000 emails on a dedicated server, you can be like maybe like 2,000 emails every 5 minutes. So if you send 2,000 emails every 5 minutes, we have, how many 5 minutes do we have in 60 minutes? 60 minutes is 1 hour. I think we should have 12 5 minutes in 60 minutes. So for every 1 hour, you'll be able to send 2,000 emails times 12. Okay? You send 2,000 emails times 12. That means you will send 24,000 emails every hour. If you send 24,000 emails every hour, then it takes you how many hours to send 200,000 emails? It will take you just 8 hours to send 200,000 emails, which is not bad. And then you can decide to increase further depending on this kind of power that your VPS server has. So if you have a lot of emails to process, you can go for a server that has maybe like 8 gig of RAM. You can go for a server that has maybe like 8 gig of RAM, and then has a lot of disk space, and then you just increase the number of emails you are sending per hour in the settings of you see all those settings in our software, and then you can just change the settings, play around with the settings, and then increase the number of emails you are able to send per hour. So you can increase the number of emails you're able to send per hour, maybe to like 30,000, 40,000, and just increase the number of emails you're able to send per hour, and you'll be able to push out your emails. So you have to pay attention to that. Let's look at OVH and let's see what servers they have. So I'm just going to go under servers. I'm just going to go to the virtual private servers. That's the VPS servers. I'm not going to go near dedicated because dedicated servers can be very expensive. And then you see that they have servers as cheap as €2. I think €2 should be around 3 or 2 euros. And when you select it, you should see the details. I want to believe you should see the details of that server. So if you are doing €2 per month, then it means you are going to get one core. You are going to get one core. You are going to get 2 gig of RAM, and then you are going to get 2 gig of space. So if you are doing CentOS, then it means you are operating on borderline, because CentOS is requiring at least a minimum of 20 gig of space, recommended 40 gig. So you are already operating on borderline. So if you say, oh, I want to save money, and you go for this, then you would definitely have problems. The SSD2 has 4 gig of RAM and 40 gig of space. Okay, that looks okay. Then you have this has 8 gig of RAM and 80 gig of space. So that looks better. Let's look at some of you already have accounts on Contabo. Let's look at Contabo. Okay. What's happening? Okay. Okay, where are the VPS plans? Okay, so here's Contabo. Let's look at the VPS plans on Contabo. And here you go. You see on the Contabo you have okay. So you have €7 per month, and for €7 per month, I think you should get like 10 gig RAM, 10 gig RAM, and 700 gig of space. But that is for HDD. For the SSD, which is what I usually recommend for SSD, you have 8 gig of RAM, 200 gig. So if you want to go for HDD, then you get 700 gig of space. But for SSD, you get 200 gig of space for 8 gig RAM, and that gives you a very powerful server on which you can run your sites. It has taken a little bit of time explaining all these things tonight, but I'm going to stop here so that I don't overload you. We are going to meet again tomorrow night, and then tomorrow night when we meet, we are going to just go straight. We are going to start looking at databases. So what I'm going to do tomorrow night is that we are going to do a full installation of the current version of Hulk Messenger, right? So I'm going to just borrow a server from one of our members, and then I'm going to do an installation of Hulk Messenger from the beginning to the end. So I'll use that to now explain to you things like cron jobs, so that you understand how cron jobs work. I would go a little bit deeper into databases so that you understand a little bit more how databases work. I'll show you how to do installation, so that you can even install on your phone. When we start business proper, you can install Hulk Messenger from your phone, because I've created an installer. All you just need to do is upload just one file that is less than 5 kilobytes. You just carry that 5 kilobytes around. You can carry it on your phone. You can attach it and save it to your email. So if anybody pays you for Hulk Messenger, all you just need to do is drop that file. Then use that to download Hulk Messenger. So you put Hulk Messenger on your site. If anybody pays you for Hulk Messenger, all you just need to do is drop that file. then use that to download Hawk Messenger. So you put Hawk Messenger on your site, you download Hawk Messenger automatically to the person's server, and then you install the server, which you can do on your phone or on your tab. So you can actually install on the move. So let's assume you are traveling and then someone has paid you 40,000 naira, and then you can just tell the person, give me 20 minutes to set up your server, and then you will do the installation for them. So I'm going to show you how to do that installation tomorrow. Then on Sunday night, by God's grace, I would give you a brief explanation into how to sell Hawk Messenger, because that's very important. I'll show you the best and easiest way to sell Hawk Messenger, so that once our software is ready, and then next year you can just create a plan around that and sell it stressless. So I'm going to give you a perfect blueprint for selling Hawk Messenger. I would like to stop here tonight because I don't want you to get overwhelmed with all these things. So tomorrow night we'll meet again, and then we'll continue again. And I hope that by the end of this month, November, I really hope we should have a test copy of Hawk Messenger that I can distribute to you, and then we can all test, and then we see what needs to be polished and what needs to be done. But if we cannot finish, then we push the launch date to December. December was actually the initial launch date, but I've been working overtime. In fact, I've abandoned every area of my business just to focus on the software and try to get it ready. Now, if you have an outstanding, please don't forget that we need your money to come in, because building softwares, it takes a lot of money. Generator costs, testing different environments, paying for this, paying for that. And we really need to get this thing ready ahead of next year. I want us to have it ready this year, so that by January, I know that the first software is ready. I've started with the second software, and then you can go ahead and work on your business. I'll see you tomorrow night by the special grace of God. Have a very lovely evening.